Hello and welcome to this exclusive webinar on Modernize and Transform your VMware workloads with Dell VxRail Hyperconverged. I welcome you on behalf of Dell Technologies, Intel, VMware, and Strategy. With the need to boost agility and be more responsive to changing business needs, organizations are adopting a multi-cloud approach to their infrastructure. Increasingly, organizations are managing IT infrastructure that span locations, multiple cloud instances, core data centers, and expanding edge deployments. While the cloud has been instrumental in building a responsive IT strategy, the proliferation of locations and instances has created management and compliance complexities. And through this webinar, that's exactly what we would like to address. Whether you are accelerating data center modernization or in the phase of deploying a hybrid cloud or creating a developer-ready Kubernetes platform, what is the turnkey experience that you expect that enables continuous innovation is what we'd like to uncover through this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'd now like to welcome Mr. Venkatesh Natarajan, advisor for strategy, to join us and deliver the keynote. He's going to take us through a brilliant session where he's going to share a practitioner's perspective on the top tech trends for 2023. Let's watch.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You must be wondering, the very first slide which I bring up here is this single letter P. And what does this P stand for really? Very interesting. There are two words starting with the letter P, which have gained a lot of traction in recent times. And the first letter, which is starts with the letter, the first word which starts with the letter P is prediction. And I truly believe that we are living in a VUCA world, as we all know. We are not able to predict anything in this world. Even today, as I said, if you ask any sales guy what would be the month end or the year end closing figures, he would probably find it difficult to forecast and predict. So that's the way the world seems to be today. So should we not have this word called prediction, predict or prediction thrown out of the dictionary? So that's the first word of starting with P. The second word is, I'm saying protect and protection. This word has also gained a lot of traction now in recent times, especially after the COVID and the recent developments globally. So today we talk of protecting our borders, we talk of protecting our culture, and then we talk of even protecting our data. So this word called protection has gained a lot of traction globally today. And someone of this personality, a very, very famous personality, Jeff Immelt, he forecasted this way back almost 10 years ago in 2014. And he made this statement. He said, if you went to bed last night as an industrial and a manufacturing company, you're going to wake up as a software and an analytics company. A very, very powerful and a very, very profound statement, which sums up the kind of disruption we are witnessing across the globe, riding on technology, enabled by technology, digital technologies. And someone recently said that the kind of disruption we are going to witness in the next 10 years is going to be far more than probably what we witnessed in the last 100 years. So the future seems to be fairly exciting, challenging, and yet scary also. And COVID in the last 3 years has only accelerated these changes, and it has changed the basics. If we earlier in our schooling, we had studied the 3 R's as reading, writing, and arithmetic. Today, that has changed, and today we talk of re-engineering, reimagining, and reinventing. So COVID has redefined the basic 3 R's, where every organization you talk to, irrespective of the size of the organization, large enterprises, SMEs, everyone seems to be talking of some kind of a digital transformation. They are talking of re-engineering their business processes, reimagining their business models, and so on and so forth. So today, what we are going to have a look at is some of these trends. I'm not talking of technology trends. When you talk of technology trends, you could be talking of edge computing as the trend, as blockchain, metaverse, Web 3.0, and so on and so forth. But here, as a practitioner, as an industry practitioner, I'm going to talk of trends which are basically application of these technologies. And by and large, this is cross industry to say, what are those areas, priority areas, key focus areas and trends that you would see cutting across various industry verticals like manufacturing or BFSI and so on. So here I've identified actually 7 trends, and we will quickly kind of go through what are these 7 trends which I see in this year. The first one is leveraging technology for business resilience. And this word called adversity, some of these words called resilience and adversity have gained a lot of momentum, a lot of prominence during the COVID time. And I apply, and what is this? Basically, organizations want to become more resilient, they want to become more robust because of this VUCA world. And I truly believe this photograph is, of course, of Sadhguru, and I'm no devotee or follower of Sadhguru, but I do watch a lot of his videos. He talks of this principle called inner engineering, which is all about saying that we don't have much of a control over the external world, right? Nobody could predict COVID. Nobody could really predict that there would be a Russia-Ukraine war and so on. So when you can't predict, there is a lot which you can do internally, right, for you to be resilient enough to face this external turbulence. And for a human being, it could be through yoga, it could be through spirituality and various other forms, or meditation, for you to be strengthening your inner so that you're able to face a very, very turbulent external. If you were to apply the same concept to the business today, and what do you need to build that, today you talk of resilient organization or an immune organization. If you have to build immunity in the body, what you need is antibodies. And the building blocks of all these antibodies are proteins. If I take the same analogy to the business also, businesses want to build immunity. So the antibodies for a business could be, they would probably want to reinforce or build a very agile operation. They want to strengthen the employee engagement. They want to build some data culture in the organization, a data-driven organization. They want to enhance their cyber security. So if these are all the antibodies, technology is going to play a major role as proteins for you to build those antibodies. For example, when you take what I have highlighted here is strengthen employee engagement, the technology enablers will be using technology to build a digital workplace, an AI-driven employee self-service kind of a platform, digital collaboration platforms, which will all go towards strengthening that employee engagement, which is that antibody. The second trend we see is hyper-automation. Everyone wants to become lean today, right? Every organization says we want to be asset light, we want to be lean. And here I'm talking of, when I say lean, you talk of lean manufacturing, you talk of lean processes and so on. Today, what is important is, I think many of the organizations, and especially the large organizations, over a period of time, they could have been what I call it as built a lot of processes which are also kind of automated. So process obesity leads to software obesity. I think time has come probably where you will have to go back to your drawing board, lay all your business, identify and lay all your business processes on a canvas. And then I say you'll have to put all these on the treadmill to shed fat. And this is similar to what I think when we put on weight, right? We kind of step onto the treadmill, and probably after 15, 20 days of strenuous workouts, the first line of benefit you would get is you probably can walk faster, you can run faster, you can climb staircases that much more easily. The second line of benefit is for all those 40 plus people, your cholesterol levels, your sugar levels, your BP levels, your stress levels also comes under control. And third benefit is an offshoot of all this is your medical bills are going to come down. Similarly, when you put an organization's all business processes on the treadmill and make it to run, right, it will shed fat. You are supposed. So when you shed fat, it is all about identifying all those activities and then identifying activities which are not required to be done and then eliminating them. So adopt the EAO strategy. Eliminate those which are not required to be done. If you can't eliminate, look at whether you can automate, and then whether you can outsource this or you can centralize this. An organization stands to derive maximum benefits when it is able to re-engineer the process first and then look at automation. And then, of course, apply digitalization on top of that. Lean process drives business acceleration and agility, and many of the organizations across industry segments seem to be focusing on using automation and hyper automation, using more and more of AI tools like RPA to drive automation at scale. The third priority area, key focus area for many of the CIOs I talk to is on CX transformation. So the moment you say digital transformation, a lot starts off, most of the people believe that it should start from the customer. You should keep the customer at the center of your entire transformation and then look at what can you do to enhance your customer experience, and then look at everything behind that, and then come backward and work backwards to identify what should be done both externally and internally within the organization to deliver that very, very unique customer experience. Keeping in mind, of course, that the demography, when you do all these, I think organizations are conscious of the fact that there is a demography shift that is really happening, and that is accelerating the CX transformation. You have many of the businesses which are today run by the so-called millennials and people who have just kind of crossed their 20s and then taken over the responsibility of running their father's business or grandfather's business or whatever it is. They are all very, very digital savvy. They're all very, very tech savvy. They all use a lot of mobile apps and they do a lot of things on the mobile. So when organizations chalk out their CX transformation strategy, it is very important that you keep in mind the segment of these customers and their rapidly changing expectations when it comes to digital enablers. So this is as far as the customer is concerned, but when you start then looking back, and today I think we should, across all industry segments, people would say that there is a lot of competition which is building. In every sector, there's a lot of competition with a lot of foreign players also pitching their tents in India. Now, how do you equip your sales guys who are fighting that battle on the battlefield? So what you see here is the American soldiers. And interestingly, the American soldiers are fully equipped. And with due respect to the Indian soldiers also, these people carry about 17 pounds of accessories. It could be equipment devices, it could be night vision goggles, it could be knives, it could be some pills and so on, apart from the arms and ammunitions. How do you equip your front-end field people, whether it's sales or service personnel, to be equipped with all these arms and ammunitions and all those digital tools for them to be fighting that battle very effectively in a very, very competitive landscape? The fourth trend which we see, of course, is about data, and everyone talks of data today. This four-letter word has become a very, very powerful word, to the extent where you have a lot of very prominent people, whether it is world leaders, whether it's corporate leaders, whether it's business leaders, talking about the power of data and what you can do with data and the power of AI. To the extent where one of the corporate leaders just a couple of years ago during the COVID in one of those summits on AI said that in the past, nations have competed on physical capital, financial capital, and human capital and intellectual capital. But in the coming decades, nations will increasingly compete on data capital. It's a very, very kind of a powerful statement, which gives a view of the kind of disruption that we would be viewing going forward. So the future of the nations will be determined by GDP. But here, this GDP is not only the gross domestic product, but also the gross data product. So CIO priorities as far as data and analytics and AI is concerned is, I think it's important that all the CIOs are looking at expanding their data landscape. So here I'm saying CIOs have to become Napoleon. So Napoleon Bonaparte was known for, he had this hunger for conquering land. So the CIO should be having this hunger for conquering the data landscape, or capturing more and more data, not only internally, but also externally, and then look at what you can really do and how much of value that you can mine from those data through the various kind of tools and technologies that are available today at his disposal. And then position data and then organize data in a combat ready mode. because today businesses are asking for applications to be developed at breakneck speed. We can't be really saying at that point in time that the data is in the ERP, this is there in the CRM, and I need to get all this data together. You have to line up in such a way that they say that the Air Force, the moment they get an information that there is an intruder aircraft, they will scramble off a jet fighter within minutes, right? And then that goes and then intercepts the intruder aircraft. If this is the kind of response time, you can imagine the kind of people, process, technology, policies, procedures that are in place to enable this kind of a response time. So similarly, how do you line up the data so that you're able to scramble off and then build applications at breakneck speed to meet the business demands? And finally, look at CIOs are looking at how do you kind of build a data-driven organization where everyone understands the potential and the power of data, and you have a set of initiatives and strategies for you to improve the usage of data and hence mine more value from your data. The fifth one, of course, this is related to the fourth one, is slightly going a little futuristic. This is present and the future now. Is talking on open data ecosystems or open digital ecosystems. I'm seeing moving forward that your ecosystems are going to change, right? For example, your automotive ecosystem is changing with various alternate fuels which are coming in vogue today. So I'm imagining a data ecosystem which could be industry specific. For example, the automotive open data ecosystem, or it could be for oil and gas, for the BFSI, for the healthcare, and so on, where you typically look at all the concerned stakeholders getting together and then contributing data to what you could call it as a data mandi. And what you see on the screen is a sample of how an open data ecosystem would look like. You have the ecosystem where you have a lot of captive data being captured, various types of data are being captured, everything gets into a common data platform, and you have a developer community which uses all this data for developing a lot of solutions which are useful to the customers and to the society and to the community at large. The sixth trend which I see, which organizations definitely can't afford to take their eyes off, is on cybersecurity today. And today, I think it's been taken for granted today that you will have attacks. Every organization will face this cyber attacks, right? So the talk is more about from cyber security to cyber resilience, assuming that yes, one day I will also be kind of impacted. But do I have the right kind of systems in place, policies in place, procedures in place, technologies in place, and processes in place for me to ensure that even if I'm attacked, I'm resilient enough, and my business, there is very minimal damage to the business and to the organization. And then compounded by this is the data privacy, and with the data privacy law being enacted in the parliament, will be enacted very, very shortly. This is going to be a key focus area for all the CIOs to ensure that whatever your data you have, you will have to identify, especially when it comes to personal data, all the kind of means for you to ensure that the privacy of data is ensured. It could be related to your customer data, it could be related to your employee data, and so on. And finally, of course, everything, all these trends are riding on this whole huge kind of a transformation called the cloud transformation. And I should say, I think the cloud has also the adoption of cloud model has also undergone a huge kind of transformation in the last, say, 10 years. From the time where probably when people were talking of the cloud, I still remember in 2012, 13, when people started talking of the cloud. The talk was typically at a 30,000 feet level, and most of the people were expressing concern on data, on security, cloud security, their data security. I think that's more of a mindset kind of a change, which has now changed significantly, I think, changed today. And today, if you look at some of these trends as far as cloud is concerned, I think a lot of organizations are trying to even move their ERPs also to the cloud, so that you have a cloud first strategy, a cloud native kind of a strategy. And the second trend you see mostly in the manufacturing industries, with more and more organizations adopting industry 4.0 with connected factories, the shop floors becoming more and more connected with a lot of machines, tools and equipments being connected, more and more of data is being captured and then moving to the cloud. Embracing sovereign cloud with more and more of importance being given to data residency and data sovereignty, and the need for having data in a particular geographic thing, which is determined by the regulators. I think the third trend is also gaining a lot of traction. Cloud sustainability, and one of the first things which I used to also do when I used to interact with the cloud service providers was to ask them, how much of carbon credit will you be giving me? What's the kind of, for the workloads which I run on the cloud? How much of green, what is the percentage of green energy that these cloud service providers seem to be using for powering their data centers? And these are the kind of conversations which we used to, have with the cloud service providers on sustainability, because every organization and every CIO has got a major role to play in terms of its contribution towards sustainability and ESG as a whole, which many of the organizations have embarked on. Multi-cloud and hybrid cloud seems to be the way forward today, right? With organizations embracing both multiple clouds and then hybrid clouds, on-prem models, having some of those very critical roles running on-prem, moving a lot of them to the cloud, and managing all this seems to be the very, very strong trend that we are witnessing. And finally, I very strongly believe that cloud is driving a lot of low code, no code, which is making application development that much more easier. These are broadly the kind of cloud trends which we seem to be witnessing at this point in time. So the mantra for driving digital success is Appify. Look at everything and see whether you can build an application. Can you botify? Cloudify it? Cashify it? Gamify that. When I say cashify, look at whether you can monetize that. And then look at always trying to build some kind of a gamification in whatever application you develop, whether it's a web application, whether it's a mobile application, and so on. So today, the role of the CIO are also changing. And I'm saying CIOs, I mean technology leaders, from being chief information officers, they are now being asked to drive digital transformation in the organization, from a pull strategy to a push strategy. They were working for business, now they're working with the business. IT used to be considered as business enablers today, but CIOs today are considered to be business partners. From sitting in an ivory tower, IT meant sitting in an ivory tower, to being an anthropologist, where your IT guys are becoming more and more moving, not only being problem solvers, but also problem finders. And the kind of potential that you have now today for delivering that unique value proposition to the organization and being a differentiator is unlimited today. And so the role, the CIO's role is something like this. This is, say, for example, Zubin Mehta, right? He has got an orchestra. You have a group which is playing violin, guitar, and so on. His job is to orchestrate all these instruments in such a way that the audience are able to get that very, very pleasing music to their ear. So the final thing is today, how is the role of the CIO or the chief digital officer changing? This is like a bartender. He has become like a bartender. What you see in the background is all those exotic wines and whiskeys. The job of a CIO and a CDO or a technology leader today in organization is like a bartender. He has to identify, recognize what the customer wants and what his expectations are, and then mix those right kind of wines and whiskeys in the right proportion to be making those wonderful cocktails and mocktails, which will be a delight for the customer. This is the kind of role which I envisage for the CEOs going forward. Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure sharing my thoughts.
Thank you very much, PN, for taking us through that brilliant perspective. And we all agree that those are some wonderful gems of insights that you've uncovered through this presentation. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for the next session, where I'm going to be in a conversation where we discuss the modernization message from CIO's perspective. And joining me in conversation, I have Mr. Ketan Shah, who is the Global Head for IT Infrastructure at L&T Technologies. Let's welcome him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I have in conversation with me one of the eminent IT and business technology experts, the Global Infra Head for L&T Technologies, Mr. Chetan Shah. Thank you very much for joining me today, Chetan.
Thank you. Thank you, Kanchi.
We've seen, ladies and gentlemen, that organizations are pressed to boost agility and be more responsive to changing business needs. And they're also adopting a multi-cloud approach to their IT infrastructure. Increasingly, organizations are looking at managing IT infrastructures that span locations. And this, of course, takes them across multiple cloud instances for data centers and the expanding edge deployments. With the cloud that has now become instrumental in building a responsive IT strategy, the proliferation of locations and instances has created management and compliance complexities. And how organizations are actually looking at easing these complexities is what we're going to discuss with Chetan. So with that, Chetan, I'd like to go right into the first question. And this one that I would like to pose to you is that while organizations are spreading their workloads across the core, edge, and cloud in order to maintain and enhance efficiencies, how does it affect the traditional and modern applications?
Good question, Kanchi. And to best of me today, the traditional infrastructure and cloud computing is something which is going to a big transformation. When we're talking about the edge computing, which is basically nothing but bringing the data close to the place where it is getting generated, so that the data collection, data processing, and data analysis will happen at the same place, which will definitely reduce the network latency, increase the speed, and increase the volume as well. And that is how the entire transformation is happening from core to edge to cloud. So obviously, by saying that, we are not saying that edge computer will replace the cloud, but edge computing and cloud computing both are complement to each other. And then when we are talking about the various applications like IIT, IIoT, point of sales, robot, these are the live examples how the edge computing is being utilized in these cases.
That's a brilliant piece of insight. In extension to that, Chetan, what I would like to understand is that we're also seeing, while organizations are formulating this strategy, they are leveraging Kubernetes on their journey of automating deployments to scale and manage containerized applications. And on this journey, there are certain challenges that they encounter. Could you shed some light on some of these challenges that organizations encounter in deploying Kubernetes?
Yeah, when we are doing this transformation, obviously, some of the key challenges which we experience, first and foremost is, in the traditional IT infrastructure, everything is centralized. And then everything is, processed on the cloud. The analysis which happens on the cloud, but the data collection is different. The edge devices are away from the network. So, network latency is something which is the biggest challenge. The availability of the bandwidth, especially for the remote locations, which are not the tier 1, tier 2 cities, where the availability of high bandwidth is also a challenge. So, moving the data from a centralized storage to a distributed network, first and foremost is obviously the network latency and network bandwidth availability. So that is the first challenge that we observe. And second is the compatibility of devices with your infrastructure. So you may have to upgrade a lot of edge devices, which can be compatible with the edge computing, and which will have the capability to, process and analyze the data as we see. So these are the couple of challenges that we have experienced.
Oh, right. So with those challenges, and you pointed out rightly so, that remote locations is one of the key areas which is a cause of concern while deploying these kind of solutions. So what are particularly your strategies around extending operational capabilities to these remote locations?
Operational efficiencies, are basically more on the remote locations when we are talking about the various manufacturing facilities, where there is a combination of the IT infrastructure and the manufacturing facilities, the integration of those IT devices with the manufacturing, and again leveraging those devices to the edge computing. So there are various parameters which we have seen when we are implementing the edge computing to the remote places, and there is a dedicated focus to ensure that that will help us to optimize the efficiency.
Brilliant. And on this journey to optimizing efficiencies, you so rightly pointed out that extending those capabilities has become a business critical priority.
Right.
While doing so, organizations are also partnering with certain solution providers. And when they do so, there are certain central features that organizations look for that actually put you in the driver's seat to steer your business and modernize your data center. Uh, what are some of those features that you would particularly look for from a solution that could actually accelerate your cloud transformation with integrated hyperconverged solution?
Yeah, hyperconversion is playing a significant role in enabling the IT agility and flexibility. Basically, the hyperconverged infrastructure is defined, everything as a software-defined infrastructure, and which seamlessly combines the compute, storage, data services in a single solution running on the industry standard systems. So with the intention of running the virtualized or containerized workload, these systems are enabled by the distributed architecture like file system and object store, then clustering these multiple systems within and between the sites to form the shared resource pool, and then enabling those shared resource pool with the high availability, workload mobility, and efficient scaling of performance and capacity. So this is how the systems are typically managed through a single management framework or using the various orchestration tools with the policy definition and activity execution at the VM or container level. This is basically the combination of fully virtualized, clustered, and scalable infrastructure, which is driven at the greater IT agility.
That's brilliant. And of course, that is more par for the course considering how organizations are meeting the rising demand for data center consolidation with a surge in digital transformation initiative. So my next question to you, and what I would like to understand from you, is on this journey to digital transformation, where organizations are looking at data center consolidation, and there is an increased adoption of HCI. What is a particular strategy that organizations can follow to right-size their infrastructure for an agile and simplified IT environment?
See, most of the organizations today are making the application modernization, which is on the top priority for everybody. Whether the application is serving the customers, partners, or the enterprise employees, organization wants to introduce the new features and capabilities in their application that will definitely improve the user experience, because user experience is something which is heavily focused. And we also want a greater agility for the future to better respond to the marketplace changes and evolving the user demands. So the cloud definitely plays an essential role in modernizing these apps by standardizing the app architecture that enhance the agility, capitalize on the advanced cloud-based ranging from the artificial intelligence to blockchain that will definitely to implement the cut-edge features, and better support to the mobile users, because mobile user is something which is heavily focused now, so that there will be a complete leverage between the cloud geographic and flexibility. So if my user is accessing something from the mobile devices from geographical location A, definitely his cloud workload will be at a different place rather than the person who is from the other geography. So that is how we are leveraging and moving towards the modernization of applications.
Brilliant. In your response to one of my former questions, and this is my party question to you, David. In one of the responses to the previous questions, you brought up the topic of distributed IT assets. And I want to just pick up from there and ask you this question is, what are the imperatives of simplifying management, security, and compliance of distributed IT assets wherever they reside, from cloud to core to edge?
Right.
So how do you do that?
So when we are talking about the distributed architecture, moving from the centralized data, centralized storage, centralized processing to the distributed network, basically, the core area is the security. For example, let us say if you are in a distributed architecture and if one of the devices is being attacked or it has been hacked, obviously it will restrict your risk only within that device only, and that risk will not spread to the entire set of devices or entire set of data. And that is how the distributed architecture is helping.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for those insights, Chetan. It was lovely speaking to you on this conversation, and I draw quite a lot of learnings from this particular one about how organizations are looking at spreading their not just their workloads but taking compute closer to remote locations, and what are their exact strategies around increasing operational efficiencies.
My pleasure.
From the overall journey that organizations are on to deliver value outcomes. Thank you, Chetan.
Thank
Great
you.
speaking with you.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was Chetan Shah in conversation with me on that wonderful missive that he delivered to all of us. And yes, I couldn't agree more that while organizations are on their journey for the transformation, what they require is continuous innovation. Well, that brings on the next segment, which is the innovation dialogues. And joining me in this conversation, I have Srihari Dandapani, who is the advisory architect at Dell Technologies, and Manoj Balan, senior systems engineer for alliances at VMware. Let's welcome both of them and delve into this conversation. Right, ladies and gentlemen, so we've just had this interesting conversation with Mr. Chetan Shah from L&T, who's taken us through what an organization expects when they're accelerating data center modernization and how they're developing a hybrid cloud experience while creating developer-ready platforms. While we're doing all of this, what are their expectations to deliver a 10K experience that enables continuous innovation? With that, we're now going to move forward into this next conversation. And I have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Srihari Dandapani, who is the advisory architect at Dell Technologies. Thank you very much, Srihari, for joining us today.
Pleasure be mine, Kanchi. Thank you.
Also on this session, we are going to have inputs by Mr. Manoj Balan, who is the senior systems engineer for alliances at VMware.
Hey, hi, everyone.
Thank you very much both for being with us. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, through this conversation, what we are going to uncover is when organizations are charged with an agenda to distribute infrastructure services, and this is steadily rising as we see modern applications which are commonly being deployed in the data center, on the cloud, and of course on edge locations. How are they formulating the right kind of strategies, and what are the right kind of solutions that can enable a faster time and speed to deliver all this? While they're doing that, organizations also focus on delivering optimized performance and experience in the most operationally efficient way. The goal is, of course, to deploy these services as close as possible to the applications without impacting compute. So, with that, my first question, and I'd like to bring it to you, Manoj, is how can organizations be efficient while trying to spread workloads across core, edge, and cloud? And how does this affect traditional and modern applications?
Okay, so thanks, Kanchi, for that question. In fact, there are a couple of ways in which an organization can pick up the workloads and look at spreading it across all these three areas. And there are different methodologies available for this. Now, one of the simplest method to get this segregated can happen at an availability level. So for a particular application, if the concerned availability requirement is high, you can create an ecosystem according to it. Like say, for example, on an edge location, you know that you don't need, or you just rather need an availability at 2 nines level, right? And there has to be just enough redundancy available to get things running. Whereas if you compare that with your data center, you're more concerned about maybe even business continuity plan to it, or a very high level of availability for that particular workload. So depending on the nature of availability that you're going to serve, you can actually look at how you want to split it across these three areas, right? And another example is to get it segregated at an application level itself. If the nature of application is pretty dynamic and it is kind of on demand, but yet has its own nature of cyclic usage, right? So it peaks at a particular level, but after a particular duration, it runs at a normal consumption level. So if you have this varying cycle of application consumption, then maybe some kind of a cloud-based deployment for that particular application suits well. So couple of methodologies available. It depends on where our customers or IT admins look at it. Is it more at an availability level, or is it more to do with the nature of the application itself? Right. So those are the two inputs I would like to share.
Thank you, Manoj. Srihari, would you want to take a stab at this?
Would love to. Thanks for that extension. I would definitely echo what Manoj said on the aspect of availability. But also, when we speak about applications availability, it also becomes a necessity of landing zones. So in Dell Technologies, the conversation becomes extremely relevant and optimum when you speak about core to edge to cloud. You will hear each one of us speaking about it because we're extremely passionate. The reason being is we call these three spots as the landing zones. And like Manoj rightly said, one is on the availability aspect, and second, and what necessity factor customer would intend to spread his application across these three different zones. Nothing comes at free, it comes at a cost. So if I'll have to take a scenario, if the customer is going to build his on-prem infrastructure, which is primarily built on a core data center or a co-location, just with a managed services partner, there could be primarily one basic necessity to expand his application availability, to Manoj's point, to extend either on an edge or on cloud. If you'll have to elaborate a little more in detail, if there are certain applications that he intends to process natively within a local site, than to bring it all the way down to centralized, then he needs to build a robo site or an edge site so that the applications are daily processed, daily backed up, and then it gets synchronized or replicated once in a while to centralize. That's necessity one to explore robo. The other contrast is if the same customer has cloud as a vision and cloud as a strategy, and if he is aspiring certain microservices that's currently available in one of the hyperscalers, one of the public cloud, then he need not kind of build his competency within private cloud, but rather extend the same application footprint onto a multi-cloud or a hybrid cloud and start securing services from there. It could be a brief amount of time. Let's take it's an e-commerce, and then he's got year-end through Christmas to New Year is when his maximum peak of workload is, and he need not necessarily build those services in an on-prem data center, but rather during the period of year-end, migrate his applications interim, secure those services, operate it from there, and release it back when the season is over and back to his on-prem. So in summary, availability is factor one, and necessity of a customer defines why he needs to go spread his application footprint across these three landing zones, core to edge to cloud. That's my view.
Brilliant. I couldn't
Good point.
agree.
Good point.
Manoj,
good
you want
point.
to add to it?
No, I'm just stating what Shreyari said is great valid
Absolutely,
point.
and I totally concur. Yes, when we are talking about the application footprint, another particular aspect that comes to our mind is automating deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. And when we talk about containerized applications, the one thing which is presently arrayed is Kubernetes. So, Manoj, to you, my next question is that what would be the showstoppers for CIOs in adopting Kubernetes?
Okay. Yeah, this comes from as a software company in VMware, we do interact with a lot of CIOs to see how pretty well they are adopting new age application, right? And Kubernetes is definitely the buzzword that's there in the market. It has gone ahead from the earlier testbed kind of deployments to production deployments. So in this aspect, if basis some of the conversations we had with CIOs and some of the internal surveys we did, we could, summarize this concern in three areas. One is, of course, the scalability effect. So if a lot of our customers start today with Kubernetes, and as and when they scale, land more and more application, they see a challenge at the scalability level. And this, brings in a couple of challenges with respect to how they can manage it. So scalability is equal to concerns around managing the environment now. The other part is security, right? And so as and when you scale, you're making things vulnerable at either at the kernel level, which you're sharing, or it could be at the network level. So multiple areas that get exposed. So security concern gets arise because of that. So security is the second part. And finally, the third is the operations, which is on a day in and day out basis. If applications get landed, created, destroyed, recreated again. So there is a concern on how you manage this, how are resources allocated to containers and the various other management engines, right? So yeah, so we see this as top three challenges, which is centered around scalability, security, and operations. Right, and the more our CIOs dwell into it, they like to hear from us, as in what we bring them, we bring to them on table with respect to either the tools or the platform that can mitigate these three challenging points.
Thank you for outlining it like that, Manoj. And while we are talking about applications, we're seeing a proliferation in this. There is a report that estimates that there will be about 800% increase in the number of applications at edge.
Right.
With that, we're also seeing that a Gartner report estimates that by 2025, about 75% of the data will be processed at the edge, outside of the traditional centralized data centers and the cloud. So I'd like to bring this question to you, Srihari, with your permission. While all of this is happening and we're seeing this proliferation, the rapid increase, how to extend existing operational capabilities to remote locations?
You nailed it right. Like I previously called out the theoretical explanation of why when customer would want to meet those necessity to expand his data and application footprint. And I think I'm not surprised with the numbers. And we're starting to see a more of traction towards customer wanting to adopt towards edge and towards cloud. So to answer your question, the kind of efficiency what we can deliver, like I said, as Dell Technologies, we've taken business of edge very, very serious than ever before. And jointly with VMware, the software accommodative that builds the edge portfolio has also become richer. Now, again, let me give a hypothesis to explain or to answer your question. When would customer would want to explore a remote? Like I said, one is the necessity factor. And the other is not all the remote data centers are going to be as exorbitant or as sophisticated as a primary core data center, because customers put all the money in bucks in the core data center, which means later calls strategically he takes remote. Either it could be interim or it could be probably in environmental conditions which is not even suitable to build up a remote data center. Keeping that, how does Dell along with VMware tend to support the efficiency and automation is, let's take the most minimum and basic factor of rack space or the form factor of these devices. I'm talking about extreme ambient temperatures between -5 degrees centigrade to +55 degrees centigrade. Higher altitude conditions at about 30,000 feet higher above the sea level. These are the kind of conditions which is not conducive to build a data center, but still our edge solutions jointly built with VMware has made it a reality. So the customer who wants probably in oil and gas, where he's talking about extreme weather conditions or extreme atmospheric conditions that cannot take any based material that can live in as a data center. These specified purpose-built hardware and supported by VMware software makes it even a reality to build edge-based solutions in such kind of locations. Another reality is We've had scenarios globally where submarines, they carry mini data centers based on edge solutions under the water. We are speaking about that extreme condition. So with the development of the hardware as a platform that comes from Dell, today we call a cluster is in the size of a shoe box. We call it as a shoe box cluster. It's as small as just a size of a shoe box. And that cluster can either be racked or mounted just like a desktop or racked just on a wall, anywhere that you can think of. And the ability of VMware software that brings in the lifecycle management, automation, and scale up and scale out on day zero, day end, all that has become no longer just theoretically available on white papers, but rather these are products and solutions that's available for customers, and we already have references and use cases worldwide. That's where we have taken edge to be, and probably we are contributing to the profiltration that you spoke about and the expansion, the numbers what Gartners are quoting. We have been participant to it.
Thank you, Srihari. That's brilliant. And actually, while you were articulating your response to this particular question, you touched upon extreme environmental conditions, which brought me back to something I read up on ruggedized nodes at the edge, which you can just rack, stack, and mount, and will deliver a seamless automated lifestyle management for all the users.
I said it and you completed it. Except for the word ruggedized, I think I briefed it and I think you just hit the bullseye. You're precisely right. I was speaking about ruggedized solutions from Dell and VMware together.
So thank you, Srihari, for that. And with that, I'm just going to take a few steps towards something that we've also seen within organizations, and that is IT silo. So Manoj, I'm going to bring the next question to you. We've seen CIOs struggle to eliminate IT silos, and this actually to enable them to run traditional workloads alongside cloud-native container-based applications with consistent, seamless operations. The question is, how can they do it?
Yeah, so good question actually in today's parlance, and as you would be familiar, and I'm sure most of our audience would also be familiar, any kind of IT silo gets originated so long as you lack the ability to have a central governance. So whenever there is no central governance, that's where IT silos get created. So one of the first and foremost thing that we saw from VMware solution point of view was try to keep as much as tooling as common as possible. Like say, for example, right now, a lot of our customers have already adopted the virtual machine format of workload deployment. So they're familiar with the concept of VMs and the kind of resources that get aligned to creating a virtual machine. Now, there would be a common tool that is used in the provisioning and management of the virtual machine. So what we try and advocate is extend the same tool in creating container-based workloads. So we're not bringing in a new tool set and thereby lengthening the learning curve of IT operators. We rather have the same tools which get extended further to create and manage containers. So this way, we try to ensure that there is nothing new both at the tool set level as well as at the platform level to give customers the challenge in bringing in container-based applications. So it's pretty seamless from that aspect. So a common tool set and a common platform is the key to eliminate IT silos, especially for a lot of our CIOs when they embark on the Kubernetes journey.
That's brilliant, actually. So it's actually Kubernetes your way, which allows you to accelerate productivity through an automated and seamless experience. And thank you very much for taking us through that, Manoj. And with that, I'm going to go forward with my next question. And this one is to Shri. So we've seen the global hyperconverged infrastructure market, which is projected to grow at a whopping rate to $32.19 billion by 2028, which is at a CAGR of 24.9%. And with all of this, we've seen organizations also looking forward to incorporate all the kind of benefits that HCI can bring forward to them. Walk us through a recent deployment where an organization has been able to modernize and transform their VMware workloads with Dell VxRail hyperconverged infrastructure?
Good question, Kanchi. Courtesy being the state of rough times of pandemic, we've had one of the ITS customer, one of the largest in India per se, masking the name to sensitize. At the time where data center accessibility was a challenge, footprint and supportability was under the terms of lockdowns on special requests on government approvals to even get even the bare minimum disk that's failed, which has caused the downtime, demanded a government approval to access. I don't think any of us will even forget those rough times. That's a time where this customer chose and desired saying VMware's vision was articulated by the CIO and took a call saying, no pandemic should stop my business running in through, which means I want any of my device to be accessed from anywhere to access any of my customer data or my internal data. And then they walked up to us, to both Dell and VMware, and they asked, can you deliver this with the restriction of all supply chain that we still have, importing and shipping materials? Can we deliver? And the ask was to migrate 7,000 of their desktops and workstations to move into a cloud-based solution. When I say cloud, it's the private on-prem cloud, because they still wanted their data and users close to their chest. And with Dell's always leading with their supply chain and proven with the best of HCI solution built along with VMware, we were able to transform their entire 7,000 plus VDI users, primarily built on desktops and laptops and workstations, into a properly horizon-driven VDI-based HCI-driven solution. How did we do it? We don't have a template to do it. That's the best part of it. At the same time, we don't have one solution to sell for anything that's been asked, unlike the competitors here. Rather, we tailor make a solution depending on the customer's requirement and crisis. We understand the customer's crisis because time was important, because they were running short of 7,000 odd users, not able to access their desktops, probably 30-35% probably must have had their moving device. And the accessibility to the workload was causing a lot of revenue impact. So we understand the crisis and we don't templatize and replicate another successful model, but rather we create a new, precise, tailor-made model with the ability of what VMware solutions can work so closely with Dell. And how do we still do it? That's where the joint engineering and evolution between Dell and VMware becomes a reality. And for the first time, we even realized that even at the time of crisis and lockdown, if you could still deliver and quick time to market of the users in about 23 to 25 days, it was just above more than a magic. That's the ability of HCI, that it can be done. And that's the strongest partnership what Dell has it exclusive with VMware, unlike any other partner. And that's what our HCI solutions are known about. I don't think I have a better story and testimony to talk about a real-time crisis met at the time of pandemic, and the customer was back on their foot.
Totally amazing. I'm sure it must have been one amazing journey that sort of unfolded.
Indeed.
Running.
It was a very proud moment for us, because they do run certain very, very critical, sensitive workloads for the country. And if we were able to be a part of a seed sown there to bring the revenue back and to bring the data back, to bring the business back, I think we were noble in doing it by justifying it to the customer.
And also comes as no surprise that actually, if you segment the global HCI market share by end user, about 49% of that chunk is taken up by ITIS and BFSI together.
Absolutely. And it's growing too. It's a growing market. While we speak on workload, that's the biggest growing market post-pandemic.
Brilliant. So now I'm going to move forward to the next question, is the how. So how do Dell Technologies and VMware together help enterprises optimize their HCI experience to drive better outcomes, which we all want, of course?
I think you just caught the tail from my last explanation, right? It's the joint engineering, and there are certain aspects and truth behind it. There's still a lot of morphing data that talks about the ingenuity between Dell and VMware, or it is instagnated, but I would defer it. The only reason being is there's a joint investment. There's money on the table. There's a 60 million worth investment done between Dell and VMware to make this a reality. And that's the VxRail for your sake. And this joint engineering has got about 100 dedicated plus growing staffs of VMware working with Dell engineering platform to bring this solution onto the table. We have accessibility to both of our roadmaps. We know what's VMware's lined up post 8.x, and VMware has accessibility to the PowerEdge platform, what Dell's been building over and above 16th generation. We talk to each other on the sketchboard, not just over a coffee shop. So that engineering innovation continues to evolve. And that is why we are not just helping customers like one of these to just build it on day one and disappear from the face of earth. We are back in there when there is a day two orchestration required. We are back in there with solutions and solvent that could be a catalyst on day end when the customer wants to augment. We have repurposed infrastructure to migrate one heavy workload by replaced by another heavy workload without any disruption. We are talking about very, very high fault tolerance level, not just the numbers of 5 nines and 6 nines. It is a reality. We're talking about objects being spread across 2 different sites with a 0 RPO, close to 0 RPO, and the objects can be accessed either here or there. God forbids there is an environmental disaster or a business continuity, still the objects are accessed just around. And all these innovations are made reality, not over a coffee, over a sketchboard between somebody from VMware's hat and somebody from Dell's hat. And that's why we have taken HCI to be one of the largest share of wallet from Dell's technologies portfolio, and also the captivating number that you mentioned about the overall HCI across the board as well. That's what we are happy about.
Scintillating, Srihari. Manoj, any last words?
Yeah, just to add what Srihari said, one of the major areas that differentiate us with any other HCI player in the market, and especially at the optimization area, is the effort of joint engineering that we do on the product. The other aspect is this joint engineering leads into giving customers a solution that can have better lifecycle management. Right, so we don't there's no segregation that it's done by another entity and there is a separate thing that has to be done by a different entity. It's a single lifecycle management that greatly helps the customer in their day-to operations. Right? So that's where a good level of optimization is resulted in.
Thank you, Manoj. Brilliant. So I'm just reading between the lines. What we're trying to say is that what organizations are actually in for is cloud without the chaos.
Right.
Consistent infrastructure and consistent operations with complete view on one platform where they can simplify, streamline, and automate their cloud operations, which means that both the hyperconverged infrastructure layer and the cloud software stacks are managed as one complete automated turnkey hybrid cloud experience, which greatly reduces the risk, increases IT operational efficiency, and allows organizations to deliver what they all want, of course, is consistent and innovative outcomes.
Yeah.
Bingo. Nailed it right.
Brilliant. This was a lovely conversation with the both of you. Thank you very much for this and look forward to many such more.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Moderating. Yeah. Thanks, Manoj. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
With that brilliant conversation that I've had with both these two gentlemen, I'm aware, ladies and gentlemen, that you would really like to know what goes on behind the scenes. Well, behind the scenes is this wonderful technology that we're going to take a deep dive into. I'm going to welcome Srihari and Manoj once again to take stage and, of course, take you on a technology deep dive. Over to the both of you.
A warm welcome, everyone. So good morning, good afternoon. For today's session, we'll be talking about how you can modernize and transform a couple of workloads along with Dell VxRail HCI-based platform. I'm Manoj Balan. I'm from VMware, and joining me today is Srihari Dandapani from Dell. He's a platform architect from the HCI aspect, and we'll be throwing some light on what's the the kind of workloads that we see getting deployed on VxRail, both from a legacy and the new age, technology aspect. Right? So to begin with, predominantly VMware has always been a company that has strived to create platforms that are software defined. And this very nature of creating software defined solutions has led us to mimic the real world data centers. So the earlier traditional data centers were still brick and mortars, but now we make use of software modules and technology pieces to virtualize a lot of things that runs inside data center. Like for example, we started with our journey with compute virtualization. Then we have solutions that cater to storage virtualization and moving up to even network virtualization, so on and so forth. So all the spheres of data center is virtualized with VMware software, and that's where we embark on this journey to ensure we give our customers an experience of software-defined data center. And these are modules, building blocks, or think of them as Lego pieces that they can have installed, deployed, and consumed depending where they stand on this journey. A lot of our customers are comfortable with just the compute virtualization. Perfect, no problem with that. But what we have seen is there is a rise of a platform that has been greatly adopted by our customer, and this is because there is a great amount of advantage they have in selecting this particular platform. And what I'm talking about is the hyperconverged infrastructure. It's a de facto standard in today's uh, selection that customer goes for in choosing a platform to run their workloads. So HCI is standard these days, and it's all thanks to the kind of joint work we do with Dell in ensuring that this is a stable, standardized platform that goes out to our customer. And when we talk about HCI, what we are trying to give to our customers is an experience that can lead them to much more higher level of automation if required. So they can start small today with having a core cloud capability with just looking at a plain HCI platform. They can expand this experience to a comprehensive private cloud solution that they can do by wrapping up a lot of other software defined elements on top of it. It could be elements in terms of automation or operations, uh, various other tools that are available to help them leap from the earlier vSAN or HCI platform to something new, which has got more power and tool with respect to automation and orchestration. And they can then further extend the journey to an hybrid cloud kind of an approach where this standardized platform is now available to be consumed not only from on-premise, but could be a managed cloud service or a hybrid cloud service. So this is the kind of path we give to our customers, especially when they adopt HCI as a platform. Now, what are our customers running on HCI? That's a good thing to look at it. And when we had this platform provided to our customers in the last 10 plus years, we see a plethora of workloads that being used and certified on the platform. Like when we started, it was obviously the business critical applications that a lot of our customers wanted to run on HCI. And the reason being, the application is closer to resources. So all the resources being within the node, applications are closer to the resource they need in terms of compute, memory, storage, etc. So we saw a good amount of business critical applications landing into the HCI platform, and gradually now we see a shift where there is already the established side of business critical application, but we see a new age applications getting ported day in and day out on the same HCI platform. And these are not the traditional virtual machine format based applications, but rather container based, pod based, or Kubernetes based workloads that are now ported on the HCI platform. And while we are doing that, to ensure that the modern applications get the benefit that they are designed in such a manner, we ensure that the HCI platform not only extends one type of technology, but more than one kind of technology that gets extended. So it's not a traditional block-centric architecture, but we give a mix of both block and file to ensure that customers can then be sure that they can run not only the traditional applications, but if there is a new modern age application that needs a file-centric kind of an feature or a functionality, that's also part of the same solution. So we ensure that this uh, expansion of cloud native capability happens as and when customers start deploying a lot of modern age or cloud native application down the line. Now, if you look at it from the customer point of view, especially some of the customers that we interact these days, and in trying to check the kind of adoption level they have with respect to cloud native applications, or for that matter, a simple Kubernetes adoption, we see some concern points they do raise to us in their journey to onboard modern applications. So what we have seen is deploying any kind of Kubernetes or container-based application at a small scale is pretty much easier. But as and when the scalability increases, so is the complexity that increases in managing these large number of Kubernetes pod. And scalability gives rise to a lot of time that goes into learning the entire Kubernetes life cycle. So that's one aspect we see as a challenge with most of our customers. The other is with respect to security, because now we are bringing in a platform that has a common kernel that is being shared across, and as and when the scale increases, so along with it the security aspect increases. Are there vulnerabilities that get that comes in, especially when customers roll out a lot of pod based architecture or Kubernetes based architecture? So security is the second part, and the third piece is where the day two operations of creating these Kubernetes clusters, getting them configured, managed, and operated is where we see the third leg of challenge coming in, which is more centered around the day-to-day operations. Now, how can an automation tool come and help them? Are there 5 to 6 different tools that are needed to run the show? All these are concern points we see, and this is some of the challenges. Uh, at least the top three challenges most of our customers go through in their journey to adopt modern applications. Now, what we are trying to do along with Dell Technologies is to mitigate this particular problem. And how do we do that? Is we handshake our experience in managing Kubernetes-based applications with the operational lifecycle efficiency that comes from the HCI solution from Dell, which is VxRail. So we kind of marry both of this technology. So we ensure that our customers get the benefit of a consistent experience in managing Kubernetes, while at the same time, from the platform perspective, they get a better operational ability. And this can be done either at on-premise level or hosted level, doesn't matter. So we marry these two capabilities and we roll it out to customer. And when we do that, we offer a suite of solution which is known as Tanzu for Kubernetes operation. So basically, what we try to do is we try to simplify customers' journey into adopting Kubernetes. How do we do that? By bringing in modules of solutions that greatly help them at different stages of their journey. Like say, for example, we bring in a runtime environment which is consistent. There are no vulnerabilities that are part of this runtime environment. So that takes care of the security challenges that customers have. The second is eliminating silos by bringing in a common manageability portal. So whatever they use to deploy the virtual machine form factor, the same tool is now used to manage the Kubernetes engine. The other thing is a wide level of manageability or monitoring tools that comes in. So it's a single dashboard that can be used to observe how the the container pods are deployed, what kind of resources are aligned to it, can the resource quota be increased or decreased accordingly. So all this comes as part of the module itself. And finally, the good thing is we also even have a deployment engine packaged along with this solution. So which is more like a one-click rollout. Customers just have to feed in the information about their environment, the IP address, the DNS schema, the user definitions, etc. Once they have this, the builder or the installer does the automated rollout. So they just sit back and wait for the set amount of time to have this Kubernetes workload cluster getting deployed. And once it's deployed, they just have to get in there, start loading their applications and get along with it. So that's the kind of beauty that we get with the coming together of both of the technologies from VMware and Dell aspect. And what our customers greatly get as a benefit is this helps them in a lot of things. One is they get a platform that is optimal in terms of cost and the operational ability. The other aspect is there is a good amount of abstraction that we build with respect to ensuring that this is the same layer, the hypervisor layer is used to create both the virtual machine and the container form factor. And from a technology stack point of view, we ensure that the various level of Kubernetes management with respect to registry, networking, storage, all get addressed with the tools that comes with the solution. Right? So it's a win-win for our customers, both from the side of uh, IT side because they run the show day in and day out, and as well as the business side because now they see something which is established and stabilized to run both the platforms, right? And when we take this particular example, and while I've stated that the customer get a good amount of benefit in both the aspect, a lot of things also depend on the platform that is used underneath below. And you would be amazed to see that containers are caught up with uh, using different kind of compute acceleration. And you would be amazed to see that in traditional world where we have virtual machines using a GPU based kind of an solution, the same gets also extended to even a container format. And to look at more detail into it, like what could also be used from the hardware platform, which helps our customers onboard complex type of virtual machines or complex type of containers or a mix of both for a particular workload. For this, to know more about this, I'll call upon Srihari to give us a glimpse of what else is happening on the VxRail side that will greatly help our customers, look at onboarding not only just the traditional workloads, but also the modern cloud native workloads. Sridhi, would you like to throw some points on that part?
Thank you. Thank you, Manoj. You can just help me to move the next slide. So
Yeah.
Thanks for the workload-based conversation and how important and evident it is to have a Kubernetes engine. But I think we exactly bang on in a time where VMware is evolving towards taking architecture to a next level. I would say next level is what they haven't done it for a while now. It's changing. This far, we have had the vSAN-based architecture, which is so-called original storage architecture. And then now it's changing towards a parallel architecture, which is called express storage architecture, which I'll speak in another couple of minutes. But what is the need of changing architectures? I think it's just a paradigm shift of taking focus into customers' workload. For instance, the slide that you're sharing now, Manoj and rest of the audience. It's the need of the hour to give back all that the workload and the application deserves from the hypervisor. For instance, where a lot many times we've encountered customers asking about wanting to create a logical platform or a microsegmentation across the layer, just as the overlay was required to create a logical routing, logical firewall, or logical switching and monitoring just between one application to another, just between one type of workload into another type of workload within the same cluster. But this far, what we have done is we have not created a physical isolation. It's been only a logical isolation. And this architecture on the screen shows the NSX service sits on the same hypervisor layer, just as what the vSphere layer sits in or the vSAN layer sits in. So that does the job of a need of the customer to micro segment the workload between one and the other by creating firewall policies, by routing the data, by switching and monitoring the data. But is that being good enough? Definitely it's met a cost. But on the flip side, it's also cost an overhead because the data plane that comes from NSX between the controllers and the managers still causes an overhead to sit right on the hypervisor. And we also know of the hairpinning issues that occurs. With the evolution of architecture defined by VMware and also wanted to give a better security experience for the customer by protecting their data from any external intruders and cyberware attacks. Manoj, if you can move the next slide. The introduction of smart NICs, which is a smart DPU data processing unit, which is a PCI card, and we have two vendors for Dell's own VxRail offered from NVIDIA and AMD. These are two smart NIC cards as an option available between either minimum 25 gig or maximum can go up to 100 gig of bandwidth. If you choose to, Manoj, if you could just run the laser pointer over the architecture. If you could choose to isolate the separation of the overhead protocol of NSX services offloaded to a dedicated smart NIC card and leave the hypervisor exclusively to be consumed only by the application or the workload does couple of things. You heard Manoj speaking from the start of concentration of workload and how Kubernetes engine supports under the protocol of Tanzu. I'm just extending the conversation saying that we've taken one step ahead to take the nitty-gritties of the availability of these overheads that sits right on the hypervisor. Of course, it's an in-kernel integration, but however, we do not want the customer's workload to be compromised with those resources sitting in there. And also, when there is forbidden attack, a compromised cyberware, the first place the attack happens is on the hypervisor, which compromises the data. But rather now, the firewall policies and routing and switching is laid on a dedicated physical card, a PCI card. So when the intruder tries to reach, the first place is to be compromised is just the data. That's the overhead data of the services, of the NSX services. And then it gets neutralized there. And then the customer data behind the firewall stands far more protected. So the visibility towards the intruder is protected and the security is being enhanced by keeping your firewall outside the hypervisor on a dedicated card. So first, there's a physical isolation. Manoj, we can click next. There's first physical isolation. And the second part of it is it creates the barrier of moving all the resources that the NSX services would have consumed in the hypervisor, giving it back for the application to be used. And third, your network service also performs better because it is running on a dedicated network card and the card is also installed with an operating system. So like I said, in summary, it increases the security, it gives the better visibility of how your network services and the firewalls are configured, and also releases the resources what these overhead would have consumed on the hypervisor by offloading it into a dedicated smart NIC card. That's the smart DPU. Manoj, do you have any comments to add in here from VMS perspective?
Yeah, because we see this as a pretty promising thing, and the entire aspect of offloading greatly helps in ensuring that the compute cycle is now freely available for running the applications. The other thing that's also exciting for us is, since we have started to see this from a networking point, I'm sure down the line we will see even storage related services getting offloaded, right? I'm thinking in terms of encryption and compression, and maybe all those storage services will also gradually land into this
All the data
the CPU
services.
engine. Yes,
Precisely.
exactly.
Yes.
So it is a pretty good innovation on that
Yep.
line, and I see a good amount of technology roadmap on it. So that's my 2 cents.
Precisely. Precisely. Yes, I think we're giving back the hypervisor to the workload. So that workload and applications own the hypervisor and vice versa, and all the data services getting offloaded to a smart NIC conversation here. Thank you, Manoj. You can just help me to move the next slide.
Sure, sure.
The other innovation to bring into the conclusion of this agenda is, like I said, the original storage architecture, which has been there for quite some time with vSAN based architecture, vSAN OSA, which is a two-tier architecture. So from a VxRail perspective, there are two tier which runs in there. Your performance is primarily delivered from the caching tier. Manoj, we can just hover the pointer in there. And your persistent storage runs in the capacity tier. Either it could be a SAS drive or a SATA drive or even an all NVMe in a state. And caching tier is always an SSD. SSD can be a SAS SSD or an NVMe SSD. So hypothetically, when there's an object which is created on the caching tier, for an X amount of time, the object stands there as a hot data. After the X amount of time, vSAN takes a call, a promiscuous call, to destate the object from the caching tier to the persistent storage, is the capacity tier. So there is a flip of the object between a destaging from caching tier to capacity tier and a state of hybrid as a configuration. There is an elevator algorithm that calls back the object back to the caching tier to be read and written. That's the hybrid topology that we are aware of. Now, how are we changing from moving or creating a parallel architecture, which is called as vSAN Express Storage Architecture? We're not doing away with OSA. OSA is here to stay. But if you are a customer, if you want to qualify yourself to get into an ESA conversation, there are two use cases that you can count in for. One, you're looking out for a performance intrinsic output workload, highly performance intrinsic. And second, you're looking for an all NVMe configuration, doing away with the spindle drives and SSDs, and you want to move into the future of direct attached storage, that's NVMe. Then you qualify yourself into ESA. And the prerequisite for you to get positioned into ESA is it got to be a green field only. There's no probability of you converting a tech refresh of a brownfield OSA architecture into ESA until unless you want to revamp the entire data, which is disruptive, and then migrate in here. So keeping that in mind, ESA is a single tier architecture. No longer this terminology of about caching tier and capacity tier, but rather there's one single storage pool driven by log file structuring that's coming from VMware. Keeping that, the only qualified drive at the capacity of 3.2 terabyte and 6.4 terabyte comes from all NVMe mixed use TLC drives, which are best in class known for its performance. In fact, I'm sure Manoj will echo to it. VMware promises 4x of better compression rates to be delivered within vSAN's ESA's architecture in comparison to OSA, which means your performance is higher, your storage efficiency is better, and third most importantly, there's a new concept called as adaptive RAID 5 and RAID 6. With the OSA as an architecture, you required minimum 4 nodes for RAID 5 to be stripped apart, 3 data blocks and 1 parity. With the introduction of ESA, you just need 3 nodes for a RAID 5 to be configured. So 3 nodes, you still get a better storage efficiency and as equivalent performance as RAID 1 by the books of VMware's ESA architecture. So in summary, if you're looking up for a very high performance workload to be delivered with higher IOPS and lowest latency, and want to move into a futuristic storage adoption of all NVMe, and if it's a green field, ESA is something that you need to pick up your phone and talk to us and make a detailed conversation depending on use case. These are the innovations that we as Dell and VMware evolve together and bring into the customer's table. Any closure comments, Manoj?
No, what you stated, Sri, is perfectly right. In fact, this showcases the kind of technology enhancement we bring on a table to our customers. Because if you know, it's the popularity of HCI has increased a lot. But what differentiates us from our competitors are these innovations that we bring on the table to our customers. right? So this choice of using the or this choice that can go deep down to an architectural level is what we promise to our customers. So that's the closing note I would like to state.
Bingo. Thank you so much, Manoj. Kanchi, over to you.
Thank you very much, Srihari. Thank you, Manoj, for taking us through that brilliant session where we've learned how organizations can modernize their data center, accelerate the path to hybrid cloud, and of course, enable cloud native applications with VxRail. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to a wrap of this webinar. I hope you've enjoyed the proceedings here. Before you leave, I would request you to please spare 2 more minutes of your valuable time to share your feedback. The feedback is invaluable to us as this helps us enhance the content, structure, and delivery of our conferences. The feedback form will just show up on your screens shortly. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. I hope the sessions have been enjoyable to all of you. With that, we'd like to wrap up and thank you on behalf of Dell Technologies, Intel, VMware, and Strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to welcoming you at our upcoming conferences and webinars. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.